Hey there, everybody. Welcome. Come on in. We're back for another episode of Fierce Feminine Finance. Is your retirement plan protected against a recession? Today, we're going to be talking about behind the scenes of one of my favorite financial tools to help protect you when the market crashes. So for those of you who don't know, my name is Sarah Nicole Nadler. I am a licensed financial advisor in the state of Kansas and Missouri. I'm also a money coach for business women, and I'm here to help you learn how to budget, how to become a confident investor, and become financially free. So without further ado, let's dive right into today's training on what is the infinite banking strategy and how it fits in overall in your financial system. Without further ado, let's get right into this. Now, with every episode of Fierce Feminine Finance, I like to empower you with a powerful free resource that goes with the episode, which you can implement right away to create some of the same results, if not better, in your own financial strategy. So this week, since we're talking about ways to protect yourself while investing, I put together an ultimate guide to becoming financially bulletproof. So you know the best questions that you should be asking your financial advisor. After going through this freebie, you're going to be able to identify what's working and what isn't in your own financial plan, which should be very empowering, by the way. And that way you'll be able to take things to the next level. Comment the word workbook below to get your free copy, or you can go to fiercefemininefinance.com/bulletproof after today's training. All right. We're talking today about a strategy called infinite banking, and I put it right there on the screen so you can see what infinite banking actually means. You know, one of my favorite things to say, right? I always say this is, if we're going to discuss anything, let's define our terms. So infinite banking is a long-term financial strategy that involves overfunding a life insurance policy so you can use it as a line of credit. Now, certain types of life insurance policies can be structured in this way to earn cash value at a guaranteed rate over time. This is not a short-term, get-rich-quick type of thing. This is a long-term investing strategy. So if this is something you're interested in learning more about, you are in the right place, my friend, because once you've accumulated enough cash value in your policy, you can actually begin to borrow against it to do other types of investing and growing your money. All right, now, those of you who are on live, comment a 1 in the chat if this is making sense to you. And if you're not on live, then let's get some of these guys on live. Let's see. Hey, everyone. I want to hear from you. Where are you coming in from? What type of business do you have so that I can tailor my examples to fit you guys? All right, let's get started. So, how does infinite banking fit in with all the other things that we talk about here on Fierce Feminine Finance? So one thing you should know is not all life insurance policies can do this. So if you already have life insurance and it's like term insurance, this strategy is not going to be available to you unless you were to cancel your term insurance and go get the right type of insurance policy for doing infinite banking. Infinite banking is also a tool that has multiple advantages, but there's a few cons to this strategy, and you should know what they are so that you don't end up accidentally misusing it or having lost money. Okay, so let's dive into how infinite banking actually works and why David McKnight, who's one of my favorite authors on the subject of finance, calls this strategy the volatility shield. How can we use infinite banking not only to grow wealth, but also to prevent us from losing our hard-earned investments in a down market? Okay, so as I said before, this is a form of cash value life insurance. And what we do is we overfund the policy so that we can then borrow against the cash value. So why would we do that? And how does this all work? Well, you're probably familiar with the concept of life insurance, right? So over time, you're putting your premiums in every single month, you're paying for your policy, right? And if at any period, anywhere, even if it's like 3 days after you bought the policy, if at any period along the way you were to pass away, right? If something bad happens to you, your family is going to get what we call the death benefit. So let's just say that this is $1 million policy. So right here is that $1 million mark, right? Where you'd get that death benefit. And usually these policies are structured so that by the time you hit 100, you'll have fully paid for the death benefit. In most cases, that's kind of how they figure out how to value what you're putting in, right? So that's kind of where they usually cap out. And every single month, you're putting a little bit more in, a little bit more in, a little bit more in to build this death benefit, right? And the insurance policy or the insurance company is kind of banking on the idea that you'll live a really long time so that they'll earn enough from your premiums being paid in that they can afford to pay out that death benefit, right? But here's what's interesting. That's like a typical term insurance policy, right? But here's what's interesting about using cash value life insurance is the whole purpose of cash value life insurance is A, to protect your family in case you pass away. There is an actual death benefit to the policy, right? But in addition to that, these policies are specifically made so that we can overfund the policy. And that's what this pink section right here is for. It's actually intended that you pay more than the minimum on the payment so that you end up having more value in the life insurance policy than it needs in order to pay out your death benefit. Okay. And the great thing about this is that the insurance company is going to pay out of their own pocket for a money manager, an investment advisor, right, to invest that money for you. Okay. So this becomes very, very powerful because now instead of you having to hire a financial advisor, they're going to do this for you. They're going to invest that money and make it grow using compounding interest. Okay. Now, what's awesome about this is these types of value policies, because they're going out and they're risking your money in the stock market, they went, how can we make this even more sexy? This is the insurance company, right? They thought to themselves, how can we make this even more valuable to our customers? Not only are you going to get a death benefit, right? You're going to get that life insurance aspect. And not only are we going to grow your money, but what if we also guaranteed that you wouldn't lose money? So let me show you in a minute how that works. But this is a crazy reason why infinite banking and putting money into your cash value and then borrowing it out to go do investments and then putting it back in and then borrowing it out again. This is why that strategy works and why it makes so much sense if you just crunch the numbers. All you need to make this make sense is a good calculator, okay? Because this is something your bank won't guarantee, right? If you put money into a 401k or an IRA, any other type of savings plan that allows you to invest in the stock market, none of them have what this has, which is a guaranteed floor on your investment where you will not lose money. Okay, so let's talk about that for a minute. So first, I really want you to understand how infinite banking works, right? So what we're doing here is we're buying life insurance in overfunding the policy so that we have that cash value. And the reason why that's so powerful is because we're putting our money into an indexed account. So there's really three ways that you can save your money, right? You can put your money in a savings account. This would be just your typical bank savings account. It's usually going to give you around 0.001% interest, right? Sometimes you'll put it in a high yield savings account, which would be better for you, where you're going to get more like 4 or 5% interest right now when interest is high, right? But the problem with that is it's not compounding for you. It's just this fixed rate of return that is usually very, very small. So you'll see your money kind of like grow steadily over time, but once you stop putting money in, it doesn't necessarily grow that much faster, right? Then you have things like the stock market or your 401k, your IRA, your Roth 401k, Roth IRA, where you're putting money in a variable account. So it has the ability to grow, right? And you'll see these spikes where the stock market goes up, and so your money gets bigger, right? And that's awesome. That's what we want. That's the whole point, right? But the problem with a variable account is that your money also has the capability to lose more than you even put into it. So you can actually have your account go negative, right? So this is the problem with a variable account, is that you can both earn and lose money in these accounts. The advantage to using infinite banking is that we're putting our money in what's called an indexed account. Now, I'm going to get out of the way here for a second so you can see what indexed means. Index means it has a cash value component in addition to a death benefit. The money in your cash value account can earn interest based on a stock market index chosen by your insurer, such as the S&P 500 or the NASDAQ, right? So for those of you who don't know, I don't know, not everybody on my show has probably seen my workshop where we go over different financial terms, right? We start talking like a rich person. So an index, if you're not familiar with this term, excuse me, I have to sneeze. Excuse me. Okay. If you're not familiar with an index and what that means, an index is simply a group of companies, right? Publicly traded companies that gives us sort of a finger on the pulse. Think of it as like the doctor wants to know how the overall health of the body is doing. One of the things he's going to do is listen to your pulse, right? The same thing happens with an index. So the S&P 500 is simply a list of the 500 largest publicly owned companies in the United States. And we figure, hey, if that average of 500 companies is going up, the overall health of the stock market is probably going up too. If the average of those 500 companies, the largest 500 companies in the US, is averaging down, then probably the stock market's kind of going down too. So it's just a way to put our finger on the pulse, okay? That's what indexes are typically used for. But these insurance companies, they did something unique and different. What they did is they decided to tie your earnings from your cash value life insurance policy to an index. In other words, they said, hey, we're going to take your money and we're going to go invest it. And you go keep your eye on the S&P 500. If the S&P 500 goes up, we guarantee we'll give you that income that S&P went up by, right? If the S&P goes up again, we'll give you that money again. If the S&P goes down, we are promising we will eat that loss. We will not pass that loss on to you. We are guaranteeing that your income will go up, but it will not go down. That is the power of partnering with an insurance company to put your money in a cash value life insurance policy, one that is indexed, because it's going to go up when the S&P or whichever index it's tied to. When that index goes up, your money is going to go up. But when that index goes down, your money is not going to go down. Okay. So this is the advantage to using the system and why David McKnight called it a volatility shield. And we'll talk in a minute about how do we use this strategy to actually protect your wealth. But I just wanted you to understand the basic concept. So the advantage of using infinite banking in this way of using it as a volatility shield is that if the stock market goes down and all your friends are looking at their 401k or their IRA and they're going, oh, I lost money, your money does not go down that year. Okay, that is why David McKnight called this a volatility shield, because while the stock market's doing whatever it's doing, your money is either going up or it's just staying where it is, right? Until the stock market goes up again. And you may not earn any money while the stock market's down, but you also won't lose any money. And when it comes back up, which it almost always does, right? Your money is going to go back up too. And even if it never goes back up, you at least have not lost money. So how do we use this? Okay. Well, one way we can use this, like I said, is by using it as a volatility shield. If you have some of your money invested in a 401k or an IRA, it's a good place to diversify, to put some of your investments also in a cash value life insurance policy, because what will happen is you'll retire, right? You hit financial freedom. I'm on track right now to hit it by 45. So let's say I hit by age 45, I no longer have to work. Okay. I have plenty of investments. Well, what happens if the stock market crashes when I'm 50? Am I going to go back to work? Right? No, probably most people don't want to go back to work just because the stock market crashed when they were after their retirement age. So how do we prevent that from happening? Well, if I have some of my money over here in the 401k and it's very volatile, but some of my money over here in an IUL, right, in this infinite banking strategy, well, when this dips, I just don't touch that money because I know it's going to come back up. Might take it a year or two to come back up, but I know it's going to come back up. So I just don't touch that money once it falls. I stop withdrawing money from my 401k. I stop touching my investments over here and I start pulling money out of my cash value life insurance policy because that has not gone down. It has not lost value. Okay. So this is why it's a volatility shield, because in retirement, the biggest risk you have is running out of money before you die, right? What happens if you like have plenty of money and you retire by age 45 and then you're doing great, but you still have 60 years before you retire, right? What if you hit 100 and still haven't passed away, have not dropped this mortal coil, right? It's very easy to run out of money if you're relying on a volatile stock market to keep your money where it is or even grow it in retirement. Okay. So that's why we sometimes want to use this tool of infinite banking as a volatility shield. It's not that we want to put all our money into that. That would be foolish too, right? We want to be diversified. But the wrong thing to do is to not use it at all. So let's dive a little bit more into, I promised you guys the pros and cons, right? So I really want to make sure we're looking at every side of this. What are the pros and the cons of using infinite banking as a financial tool in your arsenal? And for those of you who are live, I see we have a couple of people on here live. Say hi. Let me know you're here. Let me know if you have any questions about this strategy, because this is a little bit more in depth of a strategy than I usually talk about on our show. So if you have questions, if you're feeling lost, comment below and I will definitely make sure that I answer those questions. So this is the strategy called infinite banking. So here's the pros and cons. The pros are simple. First of all, because this is a life insurance policy and it's not a retirement plan like a 401k or an IRA, there's no 59 and a half rule. So for people like me, right, I'm on track to be retired by the time I'm 45. That actually creates a problem for me because at age 45, I will be penalized if I take money out of my 401k or my IRA, right? So this is actually a great way to get me from age 45 to age 59 and a half. I need something that I can put money into now that I'll be allowed to withdraw it during those young years before I'm retirement age, right? So that's one advantage to using this strategy. Number two, flexible contributions. I'm a business owner. I do not have a steady paycheck. Okay. Some months I make 20,000. Other months I'm like, whoo, that was ouch, painful. I made about 6, right? So what happens if I'm not able to pay premiums for a month or a couple of months? It's so funny you asked this question because I was literally in the middle of answering it. So what happens if I'm not able to pay premiums? These have flexible contributions, which means one month I can decide I'm just going to pay the bare minimum, which is just the cost of insurance, which is much, much lower, right? The next month I got a bunch of cash. I can throw thousands of dollars into this thing. Unlike a 401k or an IRA, these also have very, very flexible amounts. Unlike an IRA where I think the max you can put in is like $6,000 a year, you can put a lot more money into one of these than just $6,000 a year, as long as it's properly structured. And this is where you don't want to work with someone who doesn't know what they're doing when they're structuring this policy for you. If they're kind of new and they don't really know what they're doing, ask them, hey, do you have a mentor who we could split the commission with and have them structure this for me, right? You don't have to cut them out entirely, but you definitely don't want to have someone who doesn't really know what they're doing for structure this for you, because if you do it wrong, you'll either not be able to contribute enough to actually retire by when you want to, or you'll be putting so much money into it that the IRS starts to go, wait a minute, we want our cut. And now you lose all of the tax benefits, okay? So it's very, very important. But the advantage here is on the months when you don't have enough to pay how much you need to be putting in for your retirement plan, that's okay. These are flexible contributions. You can just put the minimum in. And if you have a really bad month where you're like, I can't even pay the minimum, it's not going to default. What it will do is it will draw money out of your cash value portion, right? So you've already built up cash value in there. It'll just take it out of there if you ask it to. So much, much more flexible than most people think. Okay, that was a really good question. Feel free to ask any other questions as we go along. So the other pro to this is tax-free death benefit. So in addition to being able to use this to pay off other high interest debt, to be able to use this to, build retirement wealth, in addition to being able to use this for all the other reasons I already talked about, it is an actual life insurance policy. So you're going to be able to give your kids or whoever your beneficiary is a tax-free death benefit. So that means that if you pass away at any time, they're going to get that money that is in that account absolutely tax-free. So I don't know if you guys heard this story, what happened with Chadwick, but you guys know the actor who played Black Panther. He had cancer and he passed away. And I don't know what happened. Like, I'm sure that there's a reason behind this, but he did not have a will. And so I don't know if you guys are familiar with how probate works, but probate court is actually the court system in the United States that decides who gets what you own, right? And because of the way probate is structured and the fact that he didn't have a will, the US government actually got more of his money than his own wife did. Okay? Who do you think needed the money more? Probably his wife, right? So it's really important to be able to pass on your wealth to the people who need it when you pass away without having to pay so much to Uncle Sam that, it's almost like, why did I bother, right? So that's another great advantage to having this type of policy is, in addition to all the benefits and all the tools, all the uses we have for this tool, it also is an actual life insurance policy. So you're going to be able to give tax-free wealth to your family or to whoever you want to give it to. All right. There's also tax-deferred growth. So the reason this is awesome, and if you guys want to fact check this, feel free to fact check it. It's IRS code 7702A. Okay, just look that up. You'll be able to read the actual IRS code that describes why we can do this. But at any time, I'm building that cash value in the policy, right? I'm overfunding my policy every single month by usually $1,000 or more, right? If you can do that. When I started out, I was putting $200 in, okay? And that's fine too, but you want to overfund it as much as you can, right? And as I'm growing this cash value in the policy, let's say it's down the road, I take have a hit and I have to put payroll on a credit card. Raise your hand if you ever had to put payroll on a credit card. It sucks, right? Between you and me and the wall, it's like, I really didn't want to do that. And usually those business loans you can get on short notice like that, they're going to charge you like 35% interest, right? So hopefully the next week you have a really good week and you just pay it back. That's usually what happens. But let's say you've been carrying this balance for a little while now and you've got some crazy business loan at like 35% or a credit card that you're carrying for 35% interest. Well, here's another thing that's awesome about infinite banking. Okay. When we use this tool, we've got usually after some time, right? We've built up thousands or even tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash value in this policy. We can now take a tax deferred, okay, or completely tax advantaged loan against that policy. Depends on whether we're taking a withdrawal or we're taking a loan. The cool thing is if you take a loan from this policy, the interest rate is usually somewhere between 2 and 3%. So wouldn't it be great to borrow money from yourself, right? This is your own cash value that you've built in the account. Borrow money from yourself at 2 to 3%. Instead of having to, next time you need to make payroll or want to buy a new piece of equipment so you can expand your business or whatever, borrowing it from yourself at 2 or 3% interest instead of borrowing it from a bank or, lender for 35% interest. Doesn't that sound so much better? And you can take this loan. They will not ask you what you want to use it for. That is irrelevant. It's your money, right? So they're going to lend it to you and you can go use it to pay off earlier debts that you had before. I've done that with several clients now where we built value here while paying minimums over here so that we could lend ourselves the money to pay off that debt. Okay. It's an awesome strategy. So those are some of the pros. Now let's talk about the cons, because I never want to try to, put a dress on a pig here, right? Like, let's make sure this is an actually good fit for you. The number one con, in my opinion, is that not everybody qualifies for this. It is a life insurance policy. So if you're above a certain age, if you have certain health issues, those are the two reasons why you might not qualify for this strategy, right? You won't actually be able to get this tool. The second con to it is there is the cost of insurance. So it's going to have higher fees than putting money in a 401k or an IRA, right? Because you're also paying for life insurance at the same time. The third con is that there is a surrender period. Most of the policies that I structure have a surrender period of 10 years. That means that you're going to have to continue to build wealth, build your savings in this account for 10 years or more before you'll be able to get maximum value out of it. That doesn't mean you can't borrow against it in the meantime, but this is a long-term strategy. Like I said before, this is not a get-rich-quick scheme. This is not something that's going to solve your finances tomorrow. This is where do I want to be in 10 years or 20 years? And how can this tool help me get there? Okay. Lastly, like I said, working with an actual professional, a licensed financial advisor or a licensed insurance agent who knows this strategy. Some insurance agents don't know infinite banking. They don't really understand how it works. And so the last thing you want to do is like jump online, get an insurance quote, and then try to use it for this, right? No, we need to structure it correctly. We need to make sure the policy is large enough that we don't accidentally max out its tax benefits. And we also need to make sure it's small enough that the cost of insurance isn't so high that you never build any cash value. So it's really important to work with someone who knows what they're doing. As you guys know, I offer free consultations for anyone who wants help to structure their policy in this way. We can definitely do that together. Let's see, this seems like a good question to answer real fast. Let's see, it says, seems like a person would only want to put money into this and stop putting money into a Roth IRA or 401k so I don't lose money. Would that make sense? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. As I said before, this is a tool in your arsenal, but people sometimes have a tendency to like pendulum swing, right? Like, oh, shiny object, let's just go put all our money into infinite banking. And you would think that it makes sense because you're like, oh, I'm not going to lose money. But your 401k or your IRA has the ability to have much higher gains than infinite banking. Most of the time when we're doing infinite banking, we're doing it for very specific purposes, which I'll talk about in a minute. Okay, we're going to go over three scenarios where this is a really good idea and a fourth scenario where this would be a really bad idea. So we're going to talk about pros and cons. We're going to go over 4 scenarios, which might also answer this question, but I want to point out one big mistake we would be making if we did this. If we took all our money out of the 401k, all our money out of the IRA, and just put it all into a cash value life insurance policy, there's one thing we'd be doing wrong. We would no longer be diversified, right? Oops, not such a great idea, right? So the reason why we want to keep some of your money where it is, if you have a 401k or an IRA, is because you have the ability to have like 100% gains, 300% gains. Like there's no limit to your gains in a 401k or an IRA. Whereas partnering with an insurance company, we're saying, hey, you go invest my money for me. You guarantee I won't lose any money. And they're like, hey, right? There's got to be some give and take. So if they're going to guarantee you don't lose money, they're also going to take some of your gains. And that's what happens. So usually these have a floor of 0%, like I said, right? Where you cannot lose money, but they usually have a cap. And that cap is somewhere between 10 and 15% typically. Okay. So if S&P 500 had 20% gains, you would get 15 of that, and the insurance company would take the other 5 and put it in their pocket. So that's why we don't want to use this as the only way we're investing. Does that make sense? Comment a 1 below if you guys are like, oh, I get it. Yeah, this is good, but it's not a get rich quick, right? It's not a magic wand. It has a time and place in our strategy. And that's why I wanted to do this training with you guys, so we can see where that time and place is. Okay. All right, now I promised you some scenarios. Let's get into our scenarios. So scenario number 1, You're a long-time successful business owner, female entrepreneur, I don't care what your sex is. Gender doesn't matter here, guys. You're a long-time successful business owner with a stable income, stable business. You've built that successful business and it fully supports your family. It's your total source of income. But because you just keep investing back into your business, you have no other investments. So if that's your scenario right now, you probably spent your 20s or 30s building that business. You have no 401k because you never had a job, right? You have no other investments. And while you might be able to sell your business at age 65 and have the sale of that business fund your retirement, you know, that's a risk. That's a risk that business will just happen to be worth enough the year you want to retire, and that you'll happen to find a buyer who's willing to pay that, and that nothing will ever happen to your business between now and retirement. Like, there's a lot of risks we're taking if we're not diversifying, if we're putting all our money just into the business. So if that's the scenario you're in, and you're interested in having a plan B, a backup, but you don't want to risk your money in the stock market, you want to have a plan B that's very safe. In this scenario, it would make perfect sense to use cash value life insurance because you already have a need for life insurance. If you're a business owner, you need to protect your family, you need to protect your clients who might be mid a project if you passed away, you need to protect your employees who would lose their jobs if nobody could replace you in your business, right? You definitely already have a need for life insurance and you have a need for a plan B. So in that case, in that scenario, infinite banking and having this cash value life insurance policy could be a really great fit for you. If the policy is structured correctly, it could become that savings account that you can use as a reserve for your business that grows at a guaranteed rate of return to help you pay for, college tuition for your kids down the road, helping your kids buy a house down the road, purchasing other investments, right? This is a really good savings plan for someone in this scenario, okay? And it's going to provide you with tax-free income in retirement to supplement whatever you ended up earning by selling your business. Okay. Now, because infinite banking uses life insurance instead of a 401k or an IRA, there's also no penalty for early withdrawal. So if you're like me and you're building a business, but you plan to retire by age 45 or 50, right? And you're going to be 9 years away or even 19 years away from retirement age, you can start pulling money out of the cash value insurance policy early on with no penalty, and while you wait for any other investments you've made in the 401k or the IRA to come to fruition and be able to withdraw them tax-free. So that's one scenario where this might be a good fit for you. And again, if you want more information on that and you want to sit down with somebody who's actually licensed and be able to help you with this, comment below. Why don't you put schedule? Put schedule in the chat if you'd like me to reach out and we can have a 100% free 45-minute consultation and talk about this. All right, let's take another scenario. Scenario number 2. If you have credit cards or business loans at 20%, 30% interest or higher, like we talked about, right? And you know that paying them down can feel sometimes like one step forward, 2 steps back, right? And that interest is like eating you alive, okay? Maybe you took out a high interest, like an SBA loan to start your business. And now you're like, this thing is like choking me, right? How do we pay it back more quickly without losing money on interest? Okay. So by purchasing a properly structured cash value life insurance policy and using that extra cash that you make every month, instead of putting it on the credit card, pay minimums on the card for now and use your extra cash to overfund your policy, which is going to start building more and more interest for you. So now you're earning interest instead of losing it, right? You're still losing some over here, but again, we're going to build up enough that we can either pay off the card, pay off the loan, right? Or negotiate the loan. A lot of people don't realize you can negotiate your loans, right? Negotiate it and get that loan. Now you've borrowed it from yourself at a much lower interest rate. And in addition to that, most people don't realize this, that when you borrow money from your cash value life insurance policy, it continues to earn interest even while you've borrowed against it. So borrowing against it does not lower the amount of interest that you're earning in the account, which is pretty crazy. So this is one of my favorite strategies for helping people get out of debt if they have very high interest debt, like 20, 30, 35% interest rates, okay? Again, comment below if you're interested in learning more about how to do that for you and your business. All right, a third scenario where this might be a good fit for somebody. There's approximately 10,000 boomers who are retiring every day in the United States. But if you're watching the news right now, I certainly try not to watch the news that often, but when I do, I'm noticing there's a lot of talk about a potential recession, a potential market correction, as we call it, happening in 2024. So if you are retiring in 2024 and you've like built up, $2.5 million in a 401k or whatever, and then we have a recession and it all, right? Suddenly you got half of that. What are you going to do? What are you going to do if you're already retired, right? So if you believe that the economy might crash during your retirement or after the date you were planning to retire, and you don't want to lose all the hard-earned money you've put into your existing 401k, you're kind of getting ready to roll that over anyway, you're trying to figure out like, how do I protect my wealth? This is another really great use for infinite banking because, like I said, it makes a volatility shield. It becomes a place that we can put money to protect us against market correction, okay? Oh, okay, no worries. Thanks for coming by. So if you have any questions, again, feel free to comment them below. Now let's talk about the fourth scenario. So I just talked about 3 scenarios where we would want to use infinite banking as a tool in your arsenal. Let's talk about a scenario where we would not want to use this tool. This would not be the right tool for you. So if you don't know very much about investing and it feels really scary and you're like, I don't know if I can do that, and you're really, really risk adverse, meaning you're like, I'm terrified of losing my money if I invest it, and you just want to put your extra cash somewhere that's safe, even though this tool could do that for you, I want to encourage you to not allow anyone to scam you with this strategy, okay? Sometimes I've noticed unethical or ignorant life insurance agents have been known to sell their clients on the idea that they should just save all their money in a whole life insurance policy and call that infinite banking. And honestly, this is pretty dumb because it violates a basic financial principle, which is diversification, right? Like any other tool in your toolkit for achieving financial freedom, infinite banking is only useful to the degree you understand how it works, what it can do, and what it can't do. So like I said, infinite banking, having your money in a cash value life insurance policy, it's not going to capitalize on those times when the stock market goes like, and it just rockets, right? So that's why we want to have some of our investments outside of a cash value life insurance policy. And that could be real estate, it could be the stock market, whatever you feel comfortable with, but educating yourself on the subject of investing until you feel like a confident investor and you're not using this tool as a crutch to prevent you from going financially free. Okay. This tool is great. It's fantastic. I have one. I made sure Ben had one. Okay. I definitely recommend it to a lot of my clients, but it cannot entirely replace your need to invest everywhere else. Just because these insurance policies have a guaranteed rate of return doesn't mean that that rate of return is super high, right? 10 to 15% is good. It's better than the average that the stock market does. But on those years when it just like boo, explodes, we want to be able to take advantage of that. And you're not going to be able to take advantage of it if all of your money is in a cash value life insurance policy. So like all good financial products, there are checks and balances against the benefits, and I wanted you guys to be aware of that. If you have any more questions about this or any other ways that you can recession-proof your business, recession-proof your family and your finances, I really want to encourage you to go download that freebie I talked about at the beginning at fiercefemininefinance.com/bulletproof so you can make your family financially bulletproof. All right. Thank you so much, you guys, for coming on live with me today. I hope we get another chance to talk soon.